all treaty peoples, including those who came here as settlers, as migrants either in this generation or in generations past, and those of us who came here involuntarily, particularly those brought to these lands as a result of the transatlantic slave trade and slavery. We pay tribute to those ancestors of African origin and descent.
Thank you. So welcome everybody. My name is Shanley McNamee and I am the General Manager of Children's Services. I want to thank you all for attending today's session, and I'm going to start with a quick overview of what we're going to cover today. So first of all, we'll be doing an overview of the 5-year Canada-wide Early Learning and Childcare Plan. Dina Warman, who has been leading this work, will review the details of the plan over the coming months. We have opened the chat box so you can submit questions. Panelists are available to support with troubleshooting, technology-related questions. So if you have some questions technology-related, please use the Q&A function located on the lower right-hand corner of the screen. Due to the large number of participants joining us today, we will not be responding to questions throughout the session. However, we will be recording them, taking them away, and we will ensure that we answer them through various communication channels that we're developing. Finally, closed captioning is available by clicking on the CC button on the lower left-hand corner. Okay, so I'm going to start us off. Next slide. So I'm going to start us off by looking at sort of the very broad plan. So Ontario's plan for meeting its Canada-wide early learning and childcare commitments takes a 5-year phased approach to achieve its key objectives of affordability, accessibility, a valued workforce, inclusion, and enhanced data and reporting. The early action for Toronto is to enroll eligible operators into this new program with the objective of families seeing a fee reduction of up to 25% retroactive to April 1st, 2022. Parents can expect a further reduction of up to 50% in fees by January 2023. That's for eligible children. In phase 1, to ensure quality in childcare programs, the Canada-wide Early Learning Childcare Workforce Compensation Funding has been introduced to improve compensation for eligible ECE staff members and supervisors. A highly trained, qualified workforce is always critical for the early years in childcare sector, but even more so as demand for childcare rises. Today's presentation will focus primarily on implementation in phase 1. In phase 2, the focus will be expanded to include increasing access through space expansion, especially in those areas that need them the most. The province has committed to engaging with the city regarding space expansion plans with targets set by the end of 2023. Ontario has committed to develop and fund a plan that supports access to licensed childcare spaces for vulnerable children and children from diverse populations, including, but not limited to, children living in low-income families, children with disabilities and children needing enhanced or individual supports, Indigenous children, Black and other racialized children, children of newcomers to Canada, and official language minorities. Ontario will engage with a broad range of partners to develop an inclusion plan over the summer of 2022. Finally, enhanced data collection and reporting will enhance the ability to monitor and evaluate implementation and be accountable to parents and the federal government. Children's Services will be reporting on the Canada-wide Early Learning and Childcare System at the July Economic and Community Development Committee meeting, followed by City Council in July. The report will share details of the program and describe Children's Services' role as the service system manager for the childcare and early years system in Toronto. Children's Services is now meeting with the sector so that operators have the information they need to make an informed decision in regards to opting into the Canada-wide system. We will continue to share information with the sector and families as it becomes available. We thank you for your commitment and your patience as we embark on this new era in childcare. I'm now going to welcome Dina Warman, who is our project director, who will proceed with the presentation. Thank you.
Morning, everyone, and thank you, Shanley.
Sorry, Dina. I think I turned that over to you a little bit too quickly. Thanks. So my apologies. So on this slide, I just want to talk about Toronto Children's Services goals for the Canada-wide early learning childcare. The expectation is that it's a 5-year plan, and we are in the first stage. The City of Toronto will build on its current high-quality, accessible childcare system with additional public funding through CWELCC. The provincial expectation is that children in receipt of fee subsidy and children with special needs have access to all Canada-wide early learning childcare participating programs by 2025. The timing for the city to enter into new fee subsidy agreements with operators is dependent on local processes. As with any public funding, especially of this magnitude, we must make sure that we are good stewards of public funds, and given that, our work will be to ensure the oversight of public funds with efficient documentation and review processes, continuously improve processes to maximize efficiency and to support operators. We'll use the data and evidence to monitor, report, and adapt to changes where needed. Next slide. Children's Services is the service system manager for childcare and early years services in the City of Toronto, and we've held that role since 1997 under provincial legislation. That really means that we have the responsibility for planning and managing a broad range of childcare services across the City of Toronto. Children's Services role in the system related to the Canada-wide early learning system is implementing the provincial guidelines or the program based on the provincial guidelines, establishing local policies and processes, developing and implementing an application and approval process, which you'll hear about today, entering into the Canada-wide early learning childcare service agreements with eligible providers, developing the funding approach and making payments to operators, ongoing oversight and monitoring of the Canada-wide early learning and childcare system in Toronto, and reporting to the Ministry of Education on the progress on the Canada-wide system. All right, now it's over to you, Dina. Thank you.
Thank you, Shanley. Good morning, everybody. So we know that this is a time of transition. There are things that we know, and there are things that we don't know. In this presentation, we'll take you through the things we know specifically relating to the 2022 process. I will also identify the things that we do not know. We understand it is challenging to transition into a new service delivery system. Please know that as we do, we will continue to work with each agency as this new system rolls out. We would also like to start the meeting with a thank you. We appreciate your ongoing patience and understanding as we have been working with the Ministry of Education guidelines and developing our processes to meet this very quick timeline. We know you have families asking questions about refunds and lower fees, and staff asking questions about compensation. We know this space is challenging for your agencies and that you are the public face. We thank you for helping families understand the complexity of this change and your ongoing support and patience as we develop this process that support quality childcare and good stewardship of public funds. Okay, so let's get started. What does Canada-wide mean for families? So just to let you know, the CWELCC acronym doesn't roll off the tongue, so I'm going to use the term Canada-wide in referring to the program. So what does Canada-wide mean for families? First and foremost, what do families expect to see? In 2022, they expect a 25% refund or reduction to the fees they have paid, up to a minimum of $12 a day. In 2023, they expect to see a 50% fee reduction. They anticipate that by 2024, the province will commit to another reduction that will lead us into 2025 with a $10 average childcare day cost. So what does Canada-wide mean for programs? It means lower fees for families, means that you can attract families to centers and they will always be full. It's a captured market. That's not a challenge in Toronto. We know we've always had that situation outside of the pandemic, of course. There will be support for eligible expenses, and there is new support for workforce compensation. We know that workforce attraction and retention is paramount, and without the workforce, there is no Canada-wide. Please note that the wage floor is just a floor, not a ceiling, not an upper limit. We will touch more on compensation at the end of the presentation. For this presentation, we'll spend most of our time talking about the fee reductions for 2022. As we work through the ministry guidelines, we realized that we needed to come to some common understandings. So we'll review those now. Who is eligible for a fee reduction? It's important to know that it's families that pay the full fee for childcare for eligible children and the families that receive a fee subsidy for eligible children. So what are eligible children? Eligible children are under the age of 6 or turning 6 before June 30th of that year. Eligible children have to be in licensed childcare programs that have been approved to be part of the Canada-wide system. So which programs can opt into Canada-wide for fee reduction? It's licensed childcare operators serving children 6 or turning 6 before June 30th. It can be a nonprofit center, a for-profit center, and centers that currently have a fee subsidy or centers that do not have a fee subsidy, a service agreement for fee subsidy, or centers that do not have a current service agreement for fee subsidy. It can be licensed home childcare agencies. It can be programs that are offered for part-time, full-time, or 10-month programs. The programs that are ineligible are any programs that are not licensed, and that includes authorized recreation programs and extended day programs. Note that although school-age programs are generally for older age above 6, if the program is serving kindergarten children through a mixed age grouping, those children are eligible to participate in Canada-wide as long as the centre has committed to freezing the fees for those eligible children. The 2022 25% fee reduction is really what we know. We have the guidelines for 2022, and we know what to refund and how we're going to process it. So what does being part of Canada-wide mean for my program? We understand there's some anxiety about being part of Canada-wide and what that means for your agency. We want to review what it does and does not mean for childcare. If you opt in, you must continue to freeze your fees as of March 27th. There are some exceptions and we'll review that. You must update or enter into a service agreement for Canada-wide with us, Toronto Children's Services, after you've been approved. You must refund your families retroactive to April 1st, 2022, and document the process for financial review. You must lower your fees, the 25%, once you are approved. And as part of the service agreement, you must submit an audit for review. What it doesn't mean is that being part of Canada-wide does not mean that you must stay in the program. If you opt into the program for 2022, it does not mean that you must stay in the program in future years, including 2023. What is the process for 2022? The 25% refund and reduction. Operators that have a service agreement for fee subsidy, which I will refer to as purchase sector, the purchase sector, will have a slightly different process than operators that do not have a service agreement for fee subsidy. which I will refer to as the non-purchase sector. I'll review these flows showing up on the screen. The top flow is for operators with a service agreement for a fee subsidy. Again, the purchase sector. It will be a little more straightforward to opt in because we have all of your information in terms of operating days and service offerings, and because we already have a service agreement in place with these centers. There will be no additional information requirements. We will be reviewing some purchase centers to ensure their financial viability. This is a good time for purchase centers with any outstanding issues to resolve those immediately. Issues such as outstanding reconciliations or audits without approved extensions or recoveries. Centers with these types of outstanding issues will not be approved for Canada-wide until those issues have been resolved. For the majority of our centers, all we will do is receive your opt-in application and go through the approval process. When a center is approved, they will have to revise their service agreement for fee subsidy with a new schedule that will cover Canada-wide funding. Once a center is approved, it should adjust their fees so as not to collect the 25% that will be funded through Canada-wide. We will likely be doing this in batches. Once we have a batch ready, we will process the payment. We are currently developing the payment process. When centers receive the funding, they should refund families any retroactive payments. The bottom flow is the process for centers without a service agreement for fee subsidy, the non-purchase sector. The process will be longer and more detailed. The first step will be to use the opt-in form to signal your intention to participate in Canada-wide. I'll speak more to this in later slides. Then we'll collect operational data and review financial viability. Centers that have not submitted an audit or return engagement review from a qualified auditor must submit these documents to Toronto Children's Services to review the financial viability of the agency. Financial viability is the primary criteria to be used to be approved to participate in Canada-wide. When a center is deemed financially viable, the next step is to enter into a service agreement. Once a service agreement is in place, we'll set up payment and vendor ID. These processes can take time. Please ensure you submit the required information as soon as possible and ensure it is accurate. The timelines are tight, and we recommend all centers gather the required documentation now so we are ready to receive it, and you are able to submit it immediately when requested. We have the pieces when we have all the pieces in place, financial viability, a service sector, vendor ID, we will begin to process payments and centers will be required to refund families. Please note that all centers have the same deadline to opt in or opt out. That's September 1st, 2022. This deadline has been set by the Ministry of Education and no late submissions will be accepted. I will provide more information on the opt-in process on later slides. However, we need to reiterate the September 1st deadline is firm. So that slide spoke a lot about the process, and I mentioned some details that I would like to reiterate here. Once you complete the opt-in form through TCS, through Toronto Children's Services, TCS online services, centers that do not have a service agreement, again, non-purchase centers, will have to submit more information. As I mentioned earlier, the first thing we'll do is review your agency's financial viability, and you must submit an audit or a review engagement report from a qualified auditor. Next, we'll ask you for operational details. Once the financial viability is confirmed, we will start the process to enter into a service agreement. We will require additional documentation such as letters of patents, articles of incorporation, insurance, and banking information. Okay, so now you have an overview of what the process is for 2022, but how is the 25% refund reduction actually being calculated? The refund is based on the fees times the number of eligible children times the number of days served since April 1st, 2022. The fee used to calculate the 25% refund or reduction is based on the fee that was paid and has been frozen since March 27th, 2022. There are some exceptions to be made if the fee increase was communicated to families before March 27th, or if the fee must be adjusted to remove non-base fee items. So what is a non-base fee? A non-base fee is any optional services that are added to the fee for child services. This is often referred to as a la carte, such as transportation. Late fees are not to be included and is a non-base fee. The 25% refund is only for the service of childcare. If families have questions about the fee refund or reduction, childcare programs should be able to clearly document what the service is for childcare and what are the optional services that the families have chosen to add. You should be referring to your fee policy or fee memos. So when we talk about the March 27th fee freeze, we need to establish that rate. That rate is what we will be using to calculate the 25% fee reduction and refund and reduction. I wanted to walk through a few scenarios that could show the difference between what is when you've communicated a fee increase or there's non-base fees. We're calling this the fee freeze rate. This is the rate that families will see is frozen in time. In scenario one, this center had the fee of $100 on March 27th. They did not notify their families of an increase and they have no optional services attached to that fee. That means their fee freeze rate is $100 and their refund will be 25%, equaling $25. In scenario two, the fee was $100 in March, but they had communicated an increase. And so their new fee freeze rate is $104. They have no optional services added, so no non-base fees were removed. So their fee freeze rate is 104 for the time period that they use that fee, and 100 until that change was made. So on 104, the refund is $26. That's 25%. In scenario three, their fee on March 27th was $100. They did not notify their families of any increase, but there was an optional service added into that $100. Let's use the example of transportation. The fee freeze rate must remove that $10 that is an optional service. Now that fee freeze rate for 2022 is $90. 25% of $90 is $23. Scenario four, again, it's $100 on March 27th, but you have notified your families that there was an increase before the March 27th deadline, so now it's 104. But again, this center has an optional fee for transportation attached to that rate, and it must be removed. So in this scenario, the fee freeze rate is $94 and the 25% reduction is $24. When we start collecting the data for centers that we do not have a service agreement for fee subsidy, these are the fees that we're going to need, the fee freeze rates. So the light blue cells. So we know the rates. We know how we're going to get the 25% reduction. When operators receive the funding, they are responsible to distribute for this distribution to families. so that they can refund retroactive to April 1st, 2022. And centers are also responsible to begin the reduction of their fees by 25% once they are enrolled into Canada-wide. These fee reductions should be implemented as soon as possible to ensure that money is not collected from families that will simply be turned around to be refunded later. Let's walk through an example. If your application to Canada-wide is approved on October 1st, you will be refunding families 25% from April 1st to September 30th. And you will be reducing the fees by 25% from October 1st to December 30th. So the funding received will be for both the reduction on a go-forward basis and the refund retroactive. The process to reduce the assessed fee for fee subsidy families is going to be different. Toronto Children's Services will calculate the refund and provide that information directly to programs. The center will then use its funding to refund fee subsidy families based on the information provided by us. At this time, we are working on a process to reduce the assessed fees for families in receipt of fee subsidy. And once a program is approved, our goal is to apply that on a go-forward basis. We recognize that we do not want to collect fees from fee subsidy families to simply turn around and refund them. We are working on developing some communication material for both fee subsidy families and full fee families that programs can use to communicate these changes. Who manages the refund process? Operators are responsible for managing the refund process, including maintaining supporting documentation. Operators must provide families with the refund within 60 days of the operator being notified that they have been enrolled. And we recommend that each agency follow your established policies and applicable accounting practices. We recommend that each center establish a policy based on best practices and their own fee policies in order to track these refunds. So how will Toronto Children's Services review the audit process, review and audit the process? We will develop and communicate a process to review the Canada-wide funding. We recommend all agencies review the Toronto Children's Services audit guidelines as a resource tool. So now you know the process for 2022 and how the funding is being calculated. So how do you opt in? Let's get started. The process I'm going to review now is for center-based care only. The process for home child care agencies will be different. We are having a separate session with home child care agencies, and we are still developing that process. Again, we are the service system managers for Toronto. Please remember that if your program operates in other jurisdictions, you will be required to follow their process as well. As a side note, service system managers are talking and we are trying to coordinate. However, with the tight timelines, we must use our existing processes as well as follow our own council direction and existing policies. Please note, all licensed childcare programs must opt in or opt out into Canada-wide by September 1st. There will be no late submissions accepted. We will oversee the application process and enrollment for Toronto, and we must submit information to the Ministry of Education by September 16th. So I'm just going to walk you through about our opt-in process now and our online services and how to access them. Our goal is to have the opt-in and opt-out form launched tomorrow for centers. We will be sending an email tomorrow once we've confirmed the technical deployment was successful. The deployment will be a new form through our online services. The online services is a portal familiar to both the purchase sector and the non-purchase sector that applies for provincial wage enhancement. So how do you access the online services if it's not already bookmarked on your favorites? If you go to the City of Toronto its website and you hover over one of the top banners, People and Community and People, a drop-down menu will appear and you will see Community Partners. If you click on Community Partners, now I'm on the right-hand side of the slide, you'll see down below, 3 boxes below, Early Learning and Childcare Partners. When you're on the when you're Community Partners to Early Learning and Childcare Partners, when you click on Early Learning and Childcare Partners, again, the right-hand slide, you'll see a new page, Early Learning and Childcare Partners, will appear, and you scroll down under Key Information to Online Services. We'll also be sharing this link throughout, but it's nice to know how to navigate there directly from the toronto.ca website. All center-based childcare agencies will use the online services. For agencies that have not applied to PWE and therefore may not have logged into the online services ever or for a while, you received an email on June 9th from tcsfunding@toronto.ca with the subject line, Action Required. This email had 2 purposes: to ensure you have access to the online services and to allow you to apply for PWE. As you know, the PWE, the Provincial Wage Enhancement deadline, is well past, but given the extraordinary circumstances of Canada-wide, it was reopened, and you are able to apply up to August 19th. Please ensure that you take this action, and if you are above the PWE thresholds, please ensure that you have access to the online services by following up on that email. Sorry. You'll see when you click to online services, I'm on the first square of the slide, you'll see a blue button that says Online Services Login. And then you enter your credentials to log in. When you log in, this is the first page you'll see, Welcome to Financial Applications. Then you'll see on the right-hand side, the square is specifically about Canada-wide. At the bottom, you'll see a blue button, Opt in or Opt out. You click that button. And when you click that button, this is the page that you will land on. Please ensure to read all the information and that you understand it. Then you're able to select your agency from a drop-down menu. And if you are a multi-site location, you can select all your locations or all your agencies. If you are a large agency, please select all agencies or all locations the first time you use this form. If you try to test a location first, the option to select all locations or all agencies will no longer be available to you, and therefore you'll have to submit each location individually. When you select your agency and then your location, you hit enter and it will bring you to the bottom of the slide. You don't hit enter, it'll bring you to the bottom of the slide and you'll have 2 options. You have an option to opt into Canada-wide, and it gives you a little bit more verbiage around that, what that means. And you'll have the option to opt out of Canada-wide. Again, even if you're opting out, you must go through this process. You will click on an acknowledgement that says this is in fact your choice, and then submit. When you submit, there will be a confirmation that comes up for you to submit again. This is ensuring you submit. And then it will be a final confirmation that you have opted in or opted out. This is just a quick overview. We will be sending you detailed information on how to use this process when we confirm that the technical deployment has been successful, and we send you an email out tomorrow. So if you decide to opt out, you still must log on to the online services and submit the form, and you still must enter the you still must email the Ministry of Education opt-out form to us. We encourage all childcare programs to opt in into 2022. Your families and staff will benefit from the funding. Opting out means no fee refund, no reduction for families, no additional workforce compensation or funding for your staff. It does mean that your fees do not have to be frozen, but you must notify your families and staff that you have decided to opt out. There will be no other opportunity to opt in. And just to remind you, just to let you know that the form will pop up, the Ministry of Education form will pop up when you have decided to opt out and remind you that you must submit it to us. Sorry, can you go back one slide? And what that means is, so you will, if you opt out, you will submit the intention through the online form. You will complete the Ministry of Education form and email it to us at cwelcc@toronto.ca with the subject line opt out Canada-wide, CWELCC 2022. Please use that subject line. We do not want your forms to get lost. Okay, so we have a clear understanding of the program for 2022. The timelines are tight, but we are rolling out the process. We know that 2022 fee is based on a fee freeze, meaning what the families paid. So what about 2023 and a 50% fee reduction? The biggest difference here is what is the fee and what is considered base fee. What is the 2023 base fee? The base fee for 2023 will be established through a budget review process that determines eligible expenses. Toronto Children's Services uses a budget app to collect a budget from all centers that have a service agreement for fee subsidy. The budget app through online services will now also be available to centers that are approved for Canada-wide. Centers that want to participate in Canada-wide in 2023 will be required to submit a budget. Please note that the budget launch will be October 11th. The budget process will not approve ineligible expenses. Eligible expenses approved through the budget process will translate into the daily cost to provide childcare services, equaling the 2023 base fee. All agencies with a service agreement for fee subsidy will continue the regular annual budget process for approval. Again, same launched on October 11, 2022, which will establish the per diem. This is language that the fee subsidy sector is familiar with. But for you, the per diem is the 2023 base fee. I've been mentioning throughout the presentation that the process for the non-purchase sector is different than the process for the purchase sector. Although we require more information from the non-purchase sector, many of the steps will be the same for both. I'll review the timelines and the process on this slide. Today, we're at the Town Hall on June 22nd. As I mentioned, we're hoping to launch the online form through online services tomorrow, and we'll send an email out once we are confident that technical deployment was successful. When the online form is launched through online services, we encourage all centers, again, this is for center-based only, to signal their intent using the form to opt in or opt out as soon as possible. Once we have received your intention to opt in or opt out, we will assess what information is required and communicate back to the center next steps. We will be doing this in batches as quickly as we can. Please do not worry if it takes a little while for us to get back to you on the status of your opt-in form. Then throughout the summer, we will be providing support to opt in. It might be in the form of information sessions, fact sheets, or other communication channels. The opt-in and opt-out closes on September 1st. I have been reinforcing the opt-in will strictly close. That is a Ministry of Education deadline, and late submissions will not be accepted. The form will no longer be available after September 1st. So here is where our timeline diverges slightly. The top arrow identifies that we will continue to process and review financial viability, entering into service agreements, providing payments throughout the remainder of the year. The bottom arrow indicates that business as usual will also continue. Our purchase sector will recognize that every year they must submit a budget. The budget launch will be on October 11th this year. For the non-purchase sector, this will be a new process. On October 11th, the non-purchase sector must also submit a budget. The budget process is what will establish the 2023 base fee. The 2023 base fee is the approved daily cost representative of eligible expenses. Our purchase sector will recognize the 2023 base fee is what we refer to as the per diem. The budget closes on November 30th, 2022. Centers must submit their budgets on time as it will inform 2023 funding. So what do we think the 2023 funding will look like? This is a portion of the presentation where we're starting to speak about the unknowns. We know that there will be new guidelines from the Ministry of Education for 2023. This is what we think the funding will look like. In scenario 1, the fee freeze rate is $100. This is the rate that 25% was reduced by in 2022. This rate is static for families. It's the family's perspective of what they will pay. And that rate is equal in this scenario to the 2023 base fee that was established through the budget process. So in scenario 1, the family will pay $50, 50% of the fee freeze rate, and Canada-wide will fund the other 50. In scenario 2, the fee freeze rate is the same, $100. As I've mentioned, this rate is frozen. It's static. It is the rate to measure the success of lowering fees for families. But in fact, we know that the costs are not static and they go up every year as a result of increasing costs and inflation. In scenario 2, the fee freeze rate is $100. The family will still pay $50. However, the eligible base fee that has been approved through the budget process is actually $102 because of the eligible expenses and the increased costs due to inflation. In this scenario, Canada-wide will pay $52 to make the approved 2023 base fee whole. Next slide. What about ineligible expenses? We know there are a lot of questions about ineligible expenses. Toronto Children's Services budget guidelines, which you should be reviewing, aim to cover the costs of providing quality childcare. It is noteworthy that the majority of the purchase sector have fees that align with their approved per diem, i.e. base fee, which which in this case means base fee. As I said, we know there are a lot of questions for 2023. We are working with the Ministry of Education, and we will provide more clarification as it becomes available. This is an important reminder to centers that are worried about 2023 and the future years and may think they need all the answers before they can decide to opt in into 2022. If you opt in into 2022, you may decide not to continue with the program in 2023. That is your choice. Obviously, we recognize that would be challenging to communicate to your families. That for 2022, they have had a refund, but for 2023, you are still considering your options. In spite of those challenges, we still encourage centers to opt in to 2022 so families can benefit from the 25% fee refund and reduction, and eligible staff can benefit from workforce compensation while you are still considering your ongoing involvement in Canada-wide for 2023. We want all eligible families and staff to benefit from the Canada-wide funding this year. If you decide to opt out in 2022 and then decide to opt in 2023, that is an option. That option is not recommended because families will not benefit from a fee refund and reduction for the fees they paid in 2022, nor will your staff benefit if they're eligible for workforce compensation. However, if you still decide to opt out in 2022 and then decide to opt in 2023, there will be a process. We haven't established that yet. Once we have received the 2023 funding guidelines and understand how many centers we would have to process in 2023, we will communicate that process. Next slide. Okay, so now we'll speak about workforce compensation and what is available in 2022. This is a reminder that any program that have not applied to PWE, Provincial Wage Enhancement, you received an email from tcsfunding@toronto.ca on June 9th with the subject Action Required. Please make sure you review that email, and if you're able to, apply for PWE for your eligible staff. If your staff are not eligible, please make sure you have access to our online services so you can access it as soon as possible. So you must apply to the provincial wage enhancement to be eligible for the wage floor. So eligible positions for the wage floor is RACE, Registered Early Childhood Educator Program staff, childcare supervisors, and home childcare visitors. Ineligible positions are non-RECE staff, and that's including the director-approved staff, non-program staff, cooks, custodials, and other non-program staff, special needs resource-funded resource teachers, consultants, and supplemental staff, and any staff hired through a third party, such as a temp agency. For those centers that have not applied to PWE, Provincial Wage Enhancement, remember, you received that email, said action required. So what is the wage floor? For organization, as you have read in the Ministry of Education guidelines, the wage floor this year is $18 for registered early childhood educators and $20 for RACEs that are supervisors or home visitors. As a reminder, this is a floor, the bottom of a wage scale. This is not a ceiling. This is not an upper limit. The initial wage increase will be retroactive. It starts in April and it will need to be a lump sum for that initial payment. But once the centers have been enrolled, the workforce compensation must be paid with each paycheck. It cannot be paid as a lump sum. If your staff are paid below the wage floor, please review the Ministry of Education guidelines on how you must process, document, and communicate this workforce compensation to your staff. Workforce compensation funding does not reduce planned compensation increases for eligible staff. We all know the challenges of attracting and retaining qualified staff. We're not sure what the 2023 Ministry of Education guidelines, if they change anything or update the workforce compensation areas of funding, but we are pleased to see an ongoing annual increase and a raising of the wage floor as part of the 5-year plan. Okay, that was a lot, but we are in a good place. The majority of Toronto Toronto centers that are in the purchase sector are well positioned to transition into Canada-wide, and it will be smooth. The non-purchase sector will have more steps, including entering into a service agreement and collecting data. It will be a busy summer. We encourage all centers to opt in and access the 25% refund for families based on the fees that families paid in 2022. We are committed to support the sector over the next few months to successfully implement the 2022 25% refund and reduction. We know there are a lot of questions, and we are looking at different ways to support you, such as fact sheets, templates, info sessions, tools, to successfully transition into the Canada-wide system. We're going to have some targeted sessions as well. And just a reminder, we have that planned session for the home childcare sector. After this meeting, we're meeting with the French sector. So we're going to continue to identify how and where we can support the sector throughout the summer so that we can opt into Canada-wide and utilize the funding for families and staff. So communication is key, as always. The timelines are tight, and we know that, but the goals of Canada-wide have been decades in the making. Yes, it will be a busy summer. Please make sure that your decision makers, such as your owners or your boards of directors, are available to you throughout the summer so that you can move your application forward to be part of Canada-wide. It will be busier for the non-purchase sector, but we are committed to working with you to bring you in as a partner on Canada-wide. As I mentioned at the top, any centers that have outstanding issues, such as overdue audits without an approved extension, reconciliations, or recoveries, please address those immediately so we can focus on the work of transitioning to the Canada-wide system. So where can you get more information? This was a lot, we know. We're working on a website, and we hope to launch that imminently. That will have a lot of the same information that was shown on this presentation. You can call your district consultant, or you can email the team at cwelcc@toronto.ca. I'd like to review the key dates again on the right-hand side. We have our town hall today. This was a lot of information, and it's the start. Tomorrow, we're hoping that our online services form will launch, and you will receive an email with confirming that the opt-in form is open and instructions on how to use it. We will provide support throughout July and August to ensure that you can opt in and we get your center set up to receive funding. Please remember the opt-in, opt-out is closed September 1st. Late submissions will not be accepted. Your center will be opted out, your center will not have an opportunity to apply. The 2023 budget launch is on October 11th, And that is a key date to start thinking about what 2023 will look like as we roll out Canada-wide. The budget is an important piece of information. For our non-purchase sector, it will take time to fill out and you will get support. Please start immediately as it closes on November 30th. Thank you very much. We will continue to support you and share information. And now I'd like to hand it back over to Shanley, our General Manager.
Thank you very much, Dina, for that presentation. I know it's a lot of information, and hopefully we've presented things clearly. We have been keeping track of all the questions, so we will take those away and see and come up with some responses or be able to address those for you. We had over 833 people participating today, which is fantastic, but it means answering questions in real time is just not feasible. And some of those questions we may need to do some follow-up to get the responses. I want to thank you for joining us. I just want to be clear. I think it was clear, but I did see a couple questions about this in the chat. People were asking what happens in terms of funding from September to December. Just to be clear, when you opt in 2022, the funding will be provided to reduce fees for the entire year. So from April 1st right to December 31st, 2022. So maybe the confusion is the first initial funding would be retroactive because it goes back to April, but then on a go forward basis, once you've opted in and you're enrolled, then you would continue to receive that funding. And the intent is that the funding will get to you so that you can distribute it to families within the timelines that are required to support you with your cash flow. So that is the work that we are working very hard on. I hope that the information shared today will help your agency decide to opt in into this new, very exciting Canada-wide system in Toronto. We know this is transformative, and we want to reiterate our thanks and commitment to the sector as we move forward and implement this exciting change for childcare, the workforce, and for families. Please remember, this is a 5-year plan, and additional engagement, planning, guidance will be forthcoming from the province, particularly related to objectives such as access, expansion, and inclusion. As new information is made available to Children's Services, we will continue to engage with the sector. We also want to highlight that we consider the distinct needs of families from equity-deserving communities, including low-income families, Indigenous, Black, racialized, 2S LGBTQ communities, and those with extra support needs. And as we normally do, we will work directly with the sector to support access for all families. Again, we know that the workforce is critical to make the Canada-wide system a reality. We will continue to work with you and the province to advocate for the supports necessary to value the workforce and the essential contribution that they make to the lives of children and families. Please watch out for the e-blast tomorrow about the opt-in process. We will send it once we know that the technology has been successful. We're confident it will be, but it is technology, so we want to make sure that you're not searching until it is actually launched live. Thank you again for joining. Again, this is the start of a conversation, so there'll be more to come. And as Dina noted, the presentation, we will be sharing the presentation. That the best option for you at this point is to contact your district consultant. You all have a consultant that is associated with your agency or your operator, and the consultants will be able to get that to you quickly. So with that, I'm going to say thank you to everyone who attended. Thank you to Dina and the team. It's been a very busy time for Children's Services. But we're making progress. Again, we don't have we know some things very well, and there's still some unknowns, but we'll continue to work on clarifying those as quickly as possible. So thank you, everybody.